This is more of a personal story, so don't start with this one. I have a lot of other videos on my YouTube channel because today we're talking all about where my shopping addiction came from, how I recovered from it, and what I'm doing now to make sure that I don't relapse. If you are deep in debt and you feel the financial burden that comes with this spending problem that you have, then please know that you are not alone. When it comes to something like a shopping addiction and even just spending problems in general that land you in debt, it is a very common thing to feel like you are the problem and that you are the only solution. And the good news is there's lots of solutions that are outside of you, above you. And you are not the problem. You were never the problem. It was always your trauma or something that you were running or hiding from that really was the cause or maybe the start of these financial problems that we've more or less put upon ourselves as people that are addicted to shopping. I also think, just from my own research and personal experience, that recovering from a shopping addiction is hell. The only thing that's similar to it is food, because you have to do two things in this world to survive. You must eat and you must buy that food somehow. So regardless of what other people who are addicted to other things have had to suffer and go through, I do think that this is one of the hardest things to ever get over. And I don't think that you ever truly get over it. I think you just learn how to manage it better and put different priorities in place. So we're going to dive into some of the things that I did differently to recover from $80,000 of consumer credit card debt, and how I not only climbed out of that hole, but have saved multiple six figures in retirement in just 3 years. I got a late start at 31. And I've also been able to buy 2 properties in very high cost of living areas, all within the last 9 months. So before we get started, I think it's an important caveat that I am not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I don't have any mental health training. I just have a lot of personal experience with these things that I'm going to share about today. This is my journey, this is my experience. I know that a lot of you have reached out to me through my DMs on Instagram. It's at Christina Scalera. Feel free to reach out to me if this video struck home for you. But a lot of you have reached out and said that some of the content around finances that I've been covering lately has been really powerful and impactful for you. Even if you don't leave a comment here, I know who you are, I see you. Those comments definitely do help, but I understand that when I'm talking about things that are a little more personal in nature, not everybody wants to drop the like or the comment, although the likes are anonymous, so it does help a lot. If you are new here, again, this is not the video for you to start with, but you're here anyway. So I'm Christina Scalera, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I specialize in helping people create passive income futures through their different investments, and mostly through the businesses that they start that always make sure that they work for them and not the other way around. We don't want to become employees of our own business. So if you want a business that lets you work when you want to, not because you have to, then you're in the right spot. This channel is all about helping you to achieve that. So first of all, I want to jump into today's topic by saying that I didn't actually know that I had a problem. I just thought that, you know, like, haha, LOL, college, grad school girl out at the mall shopping for stuff. I thought that's the extent to what it was. But looking back, it was a major problem. So much so that when I had final exams, so I went to law school, and you only have one test to graduate from each class. So instead of studying for those tests, I found myself, I was so stressed out, I was so overwhelmed. I was living in Atlanta at the time. There's this like beautiful West Side shopping center. It's like all outdoors. There's an Anthropologie there. I would just like go to Anthropologie and spend hours and hundreds of dollars there when I was supposed to be studying. And did I get any better at studying because I spent all of my time doing nothing in an Anthropologie? Absolutely not. That was super unproductive, unhelpful, but I did use it as a coping mechanism. I don't know why, like, I don't know what the science is behind that, but that was where I found myself almost every day of my law school career and then beyond. And it started really in college. So when I went to college, nobody was there to tell me I couldn't go anywhere. And when I did go to high school, I lived really, really far away from like everything. Like we lived out in the middle of nowhere. In fact, I think the house that we lived at still is surrounded by like hundreds of acres of protected farmland. So I was in the middle of nowhere. And so when I went to college, I was on my own for the first time. I finally had a car. I could go wherever I wanted. And I would go to the mall or I would go to Plato's Closet like every single day. And it started out innocuously enough, right? Like I would shop around and I would, pick up some what I thought were deals or something like that. And of course, I didn't know marketing at the time, so every store is always having a deal. I've had to teach this to my husband and show him like what's actually a deal and what's not, because marketers are very, very good at what they do, and they're very good at convincing people that there's always a deal going on, when in fact, there are very few deals that actually happen throughout the year. Yes, they exist, but more or less they're just promotions trying to bring attention and awareness without actually just saying buy our stuff every single day. So long story short, I found myself at the mall in my college town, and I was such a people pleaser that I almost never could walk out of a store and just say thank you and leave. That is the appropriate thing to do. That is what most normal people that don't have a shopping addiction do. So instead, I would walk out of every store with something. I bought a card, I'd buy pens, I'd buy clothing, I'd buy perfume, things that I didn't even want because I was so afraid of letting that person down. I mean, in hindsight, they don't care. They're getting paid probably minimum wage and they only worked here for a week and they just don't care. They don't care if I say thank you. They don't care if I say goodbye. They don't care if I buy $18 million worth of merchandise there. So if you are the kind of person who is such a people pleaser that you find that you can't even walk out of a store without buying something or feeling bad about not buying something, please remember a polite thank you so much and leaving is the appropriate response, or no response at all. Just walk out of the store and enjoy your day because they are there to serve you as the shopkeeper and as the person who is merchandising the store, not the other way around. You're not there for their entertainment. So I know that's something silly for most people, but for me, that was something that was really driving. But you know, like if I could find an excuse to buy anything in the stores like that, that was like my thing. I was like, oh, that's my ticket out of here. I can leave now. So it's just so crazy in hindsight. Like I don't even, it's so embarrassing almost to admit, but here I am because I'm gonna do it so that you can feel normal. So I was looking for those deals every day, which of course there were always deals. I was always buying something because I felt bad just walking out. And I was also shopping for things that I quote unquote needed. So I would spend an excessive amount of time at the grocery store because the grocery store to me was like budget shopping, right? Like, have you ever gone to a store and you're like, this is amazing? Well, of course, if you're watching this, you probably have a shopping problem. So you, of course, I've done this. But you go to a store and you're like, I can buy so many things. Like I remember going to Forever 21, the first time I ever went there and I bought like 10 items of clothing for like $120. I was like, what is this place? Of course, it all fell apart the next day. Literally, like I had a sweater unravel up my sleeve in class. But you know, at that moment, that dopamine rush was just like so strong. And I should also mention at this time, I had completely undiagnosed, untreated ADHD. So I think that did not help at all as far as getting that dopamine rush every single time I made a purchase. So the good question to ask at this point is, where was all that money coming from? Well, if you are an American, you know that when you turn 18, something very special happens. You get as many credit cards as you want. So that was what I started with, was consumer credit cards, and I would just rack one up and then I would transfer the balance and I would get another one. And so that was really what started the cycle. And luckily I did get a job at some point during law school and then after, and I was able to pay down some of that and get a little bit of control on it because I was working all the time. You're gonna notice that's also a pattern, is I don't really recover completely from the shopping. I just kind of spill that over into something new. I redirect that focus and that attention. But anyway, so college, I was shopping a lot. Law school, it got even worse, got even more expensive because, you know, now Lululemon existed. That didn't exist before. You know, my purchases, my orders were just becoming larger and larger. So there were some things that I had to do in order to stop the cycle. The first thing was the attention redirect. I had to figure something else out because my grades were failing. I was I was at risk of possibly getting kicked out because they were so bad, and they were terrible because I was literally never studying. I would show up to class, so at least I got that knowledge, but you know, try recalling something on a test that you studied 3 months prior on the first day of school. It's not very easy if you haven't reviewed that at all since then. So this is a period of like 5 or 6 years where this is happening, and I was able to redirect some of that attention after I graduated from law school into more healthy activities. So I got really into yoga, and I started doing like marmotherapy and acupuncture. Again, still a spending problem, still overspending, but just redirecting it to a new thing. Instead of wandering around the mall every single day because I felt like I had to go there and just do this, I would just go to different yoga classes in town. Obviously, that's a little bit less expensive. That takes up a little bit more time. So that was really, really helpful to start to curb this behavior. Again, I had no idea that I had a problem at the time. I just knew that I was trying to escape from something and I was very stressed out and I was looking for different ways to do that. So after law school, I got my dream job and I decided to work for myself. That's a whole nother story that I'm not going to cover in this video, but it also forced me to have a very enlightening moment where I realized that if I didn't stop spending money, and at this point, all of the spend had shifted to business. I was buying courses, I was investing in mentors. I didn't even have a business yet. I was buying websites and graphic design for a website that like didn't even have 10 visitors a month. So again, same exact problem, just a different, face of makeup. And what happened was I had to look at all this and say, this is not a business. Because at this point I had started to identify as someone who wanted to work for themselves. I don't know that I would have considered myself an entrepreneur or a business person, but I definitely thought of myself as like a blogger, someone that had an online nomadic career maybe is the wrong word, but just someone that was moving in that direction and had that potential for that future online. And I had to be honest with myself after I literally used up the last like $3,000 on any credit card that I had. I used it to go to a retreat for creative entrepreneurs. And in hindsight, I really don't regret that because that gave me a lot of networking and connections that I'm still using and friends with and everything to this day. But that was a huge risk. And I think I was incredibly lucky in that moment that that's what my last $3,000 of credit was spent on. And then I literally had no money. So here I am literally I wasn't evicted, but I had to leave my apartment because I couldn't afford it anymore. This was also like very bad. I didn't know. I emailed the landlord. I said, hello, I'm giving you my 30 days notice. That wasn't a thing, by the way. Like I'd signed a year lease. So I was like, hello, I'm giving you my 30 days notice. I'm moving out. I'm moving in with a friend. I'm very sorry, but that's what's happening right now. Like that is not a thing. Like you do not do that. But, I guess whatever. They just were like, they were very upset, like very angry. They're like, no, you have this year lease, whatever. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't pay for it anymore. I am now leaving, bye. And they're like, well, you're not getting your deposit back. And that was like devastating because I had forgotten, right? They had a couple $1,000s of mine like as a deposit. I guess they had this situation before. So I lost that. I lost, a month of rent or whatever because they made me pay this like extra thing. So it was really just kind of like adding salt to the wounds because I could not afford that. I couldn't afford to stay there. I couldn't afford to keep paying them. I thought I was getting some money back from them, like whatever. I don't know. I was just an idiot at the time, I guess. And I was in this moment where I was like, well, you've lost your apartment, you can't even pay rent, you have to check your bank account every time you go to buy groceries. That's embarrassing. Like if I ever had to not use the self-checkout line, if I had to go through the regular line, I was panicking because I knew that I'd have to try like 2 or 3 cards in order to check out. And with the self-checkout, that was a lot less embarrassing because no one was like, oh, it's declined, right? You could just try different cards. Anyway, that was the moment where I was like, something has to change. I have to take this business seriously. I have to look at what is actually working and not just what I feel passionate about or what feels good or flowy. Those things are amazing to have in business and they definitely came. But what I was trying to pursue based on what the internet told me to pursue and what was actually working were very different things. And when I started to look at the numbers of what was actually working, I pursued that into what became the contract shop, which is the business I sold last year. And it was all because I started pouring my time and effort and energy into that business. Now, to say that the shopping addiction was gone would be false. I don't believe you ever actually get over it. I think you just learn how to live with it and cope with it to varying degrees. Like I would say to some extent, my real estate obsession is just a new iteration of this shopping addiction, albeit a little bit more regulated because I have, I have a lot more boundaries in place around that. You can't just like put a deposit on a house on Redfin. Like you can shop for them, but you can't put a deposit on them. When I started the business, again, I think I just redirected a lot of that stress, that anxiety, that energy into the business and started making that something that I spent all of my time and dedication and really crafting my identity around that versus like, hot girl walking through a mall. I spent it all on that business. So as a result of just shifting and changing this identity, I was better able to support myself because that business was immediately, well, I should say for 3 months it did nothing. And I thought, oh, here we are again. But then it was successful ultimately, and just a little bit at a time. It felt like a lot at the time, but it really wasn't that much. For the first 3 months, like nothing happened. And my best friend died. So there was that. So the 4th month that I was in business with the contract shop, that was when things started to take off for me. And that was when it felt like something could happen. And I was so naive at the time, thank goodness. I didn't know that like a lot of what I had enjoyed that 4th month in business was luck. I had definitely created a lot of that. I had put myself in the right places, in the right rooms, had the right conversations, really worked to get the sales that I did. But at the same time, like, it could have just as easily not have happened. I do think that, you know, with that taking off and just giving me that little tiny boost of encouragement that I needed, that was what really changed everything for me and gave me the confidence to move forward with that business and to continue to look for new ways to help people. And when I kept doing that and kept pursuing that path, then it started to feel better and it started to feel like doors were opening instead of slamming shut in my face. And, you know, again, the shopping addiction was just redirected there. So now I was investing in even more mentors, even more coaches, etc. You know, this is a pattern where the stress, the anxiety is just redirected until really within the past few years where I've learned how to actually start to deal with that, how to actually sit with that and not just like run away from it, but actually do more productive things like physical activity to relieve some of that stress, or even looking for opportunities to explore where some of that anxiety is coming from and address that head on instead of trying to run away from it or hide it with a new purchase or something like that. I also very practically put tools in place that helped me. For example, I knew I needed credit to be an American living in society. I am not Dave Ramsey. I don't have a $600 million, you know, complex in Tennessee. So I actually need credit. And the way that I was able to maintain a good credit score and really, well, to get back to a good credit score was I put all of my credit cards, I attached them to something that was a monthly recurring payment, like a Netflix or, you know, not Apple Pay, because that's on your phone. That's there forever. You can pay anything with that. My Apple like store, you know, if I needed a subscription, right? Like to like a mindfulness app or something like that. And then I took those cards and I shredded them. So they were attached, they were getting charged something on a monthly basis. That way they didn't shut down. And then they were shredded so I couldn't put any new charges on there. And then I was slowly paying them off. First it was like $5 a week, and then I upped it to 20 and then 40 and then 100 until they were all paid off. Actually, I got to the point where they were so paid off, like they had like negative balances. That was like kind of trippy. So I actually had to like spend money. One of them I never spent money on. They just sent me a check after a certain amount of time. But like I had to like shut off the auto pay because like I had overpaid on those. So that was a really cool feeling to like just start to see that. The other thing I had to do is like build my savings muscle. And the way that happened was very organically, but this is something that you can copy and put into place today. So during this time when I was feeling anxious, kind of climbing out of the debt, all that kind of stuff, building the business, I was like, I don't want to always land in the same place. Like I want to actually learn about money and get good with it. And I feel like this is something I can learn, you know, like learning how to play the clarinet or learning how to ride a horse. These are things that I've done in my life. They're skills. I didn't come out of the womb knowing how to do them, but I can learn how to do them now. I think financial literacy is like that. That was my hunch. And so I started reading every book that I could, and 2 really stood out to me as very important books in this journey. The first was I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And the second one was, I think it's called It's Not Your Money by Tosha Silver. And those 2 were really powerful for me. And I think, you know, everyone's going to have their own books, right? Like I know a lot of people like Jen Sincero and her money book or whatever, but that one just didn't really resonate with me, but those 2 did. So if that helps, you know, go read those books. I did an audio version and Kindle. And so one night I was reading Ramit's book and I got to the chapter about a Roth IRA. And here I was still with debt, still trying to figure things out. And I was like, if I open a Roth IRA, I only have a certain amount of time to contribute this. So with my ADHD, deadlines work really well, like really well. And what I was able to do is see that April 15th or whatever, April 17th, some years, is tax day. And that is the cutoff to contribute for that year's Roth IRA. Like you can pay debt off forever, but that is the that's like it. You can never contribute again for that year after April, whatever, 15th, 17th. So that was very motivating to me. And what I did like immediately in that moment is like 3:30 in the morning. I'm super stressed. I'm super anxious. I mean, obviously I'm up at 3:30 reading a book about money. I started a Roth IRA right then and there. I downloaded the Schwab app, set up an account, took me less than 30 seconds. Like it was actually crazy simple to do that I thought I had done something wrong. And I transferred the first $5 into that account, and I just set up an automatic recurring transfer from a bank account that I would be lying if I didn't, you know, say that that recurring transfer, like it definitely overdrafted it some weeks. Like we're gonna keep that, you know, between you and I. But you know, it's not the end of the world. You just call the bank. Like they gave me the $35 back. It was fine. I learned a little bit more about how to maintain the balances there, so I didn't do that again. And then once I got a little bit better there, I felt a little more confident. I would up the balance from $5, and it was really easy now because the transfer is just going. So I just have to change the dollar amount, and I changed it to 20, and then I changed it to 100, and then I changed it to 115, which at the time the limit was $6,000 to contribute to your Roth IRA. There I was, maxing out my Roth IRA for the first time. I still had some credit card debts and things like that, but I knew I was going to be okay because I was learning how to save. And I was also maxing out an account that I could never, you know, add money to that again for that year. And that felt really, really good. So I would say that for anybody that's on this journey, the most important things to do is to figure out, you know, do you have any triggers? Like for me, it was the stress of other people expecting a lot, whether that was in college, in law school, at the first job that I had out of law school. It was the emotional pressure was too much. And I think in hindsight, a lot of that was because I did have undiagnosed ADHD and OCD, anxiety, things like that. I do wish I had gotten medical help earlier, but I did grow up in a family that didn't really put an emphasis on getting help for mental health conditions. They kind of think it's a joke. So it took me a while to recognize that that might be something that I needed help for and to seek out treatment. And I'm so glad I did, because through cognitive behavioral therapy and journaling and coaching and lots of other modalities in my life, I've been able to change a lot of that and to improve my confidence and just kind of skills and coping mechanisms around the types of things that were causing anxiety or dealing with trauma or whatever in my life. Second, remember, I set up the credit cards and then I shredded them so that I did have credit, but I couldn't use it. I think that was really effective. I'm glad I did that, and I would do that again if I needed to. And then the third thing I did was start saving in lieu of like using all of my money to pay off debt. And the other thing I did with that Roth IRA is I looked at it like an emergency savings account, because you can actually take out the money that you can contribute. So if you invest it, right, you want to do that, yay, money grows in your Roth IRA. If you invest it, you can't necessarily take out the money that has been invested and is growing, but the money that you actually put into the account, you know, that is available for you to withdraw. So you can take that out just like you would, you know, a savings account or anything else. And hopefully it's been making you a lot more money in the meantime because it's invested in stocks and things like that. My understanding is if you put $6,000 into your Roth IRA and it makes you, you know, $300, now you have $6,300 in there, you can take the $6,000 out. You can't touch the $300. Technically you can, but there's a penalty, so we don't want to do that. But you can take the $6,000 out if you really, really, really needed to. I would say that's like an extreme emergency situation where I'd be touching that, but I do know that it is available to me. And that account has grown from $5 when I first opened it to tens of thousands of dollars now. And between all of my other accounts and all of the retirement savings, I've gone from $5, literally $5, to multiple six figures. Plus that doesn't even count like the houses and things like that we own, or the business that I have now. So lots of different assets that were built up only in the last three and a half years. And I got a very late start. So I just want to encourage you that if you are not sure what you should be doing as far as investments or retirement go, if you are a business owner and you feel like this, you know, making money thing is just like really hard, and it's even harder when you're spending all the money either back in your own business or maybe on, you know, things that like you don't really need. I don't want to call them frivolous because, like, you know, if you're dealing with your trauma that way, it doesn't feel frivolous. Anyway, if that's what's happening for you, then I just want to assure you that you're in good company. And hopefully this video is really helpful. If you know, part of my story stuck out to you, I would really love to connect with you in the comments and just kind of get to know each other better. And also I just want to offer that, you can work for yourself. You can have the confidence to get out there and make your own money. Whether that becomes your full-time job or not, that's totally fine. But that can definitely, I would say, fast track your growth in terms of how well you get out of debt and how fast that happens. And it might be a happy accident like I had, where you actually learn that you can redirect a lot of your energy into something that makes you money instead of something that costs you money, and help to identify more with that than, you know, that of like the hot girl shopping at the mall all the time. So if you're down in the shopaholic hole, please know that I've been there. I completely understand what it's like. I don't know what it's like for you. I never want to assume your feelings, but I know what it was like for me, and I know generally what it's like for us down there. So please know that you're in good company. There's a way out. There is a brighter future, and it's actually all already within you. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but it's true, because there's no one that can take better care of you than you. You just have to make that decision. You have to decide that it's the right time for you to change something, to change your identity into someone who is good with money instead of bad. And that sounds overly simplistic, but that's literally the switch that was flipped for me, is like, I'm not good at money, and I'm gonna learn how to be good at money. And it's so surreal, because people come to me now and ask me like their money questions, and I still see the person who, you know, 4 years ago was in this deep dark hole. I'm like, why are you coming to me? No. Like, but you know, they see the person on the other side of that. So I just want to encourage you that if you are experiencing anything like this, or if any of this resonated, then there's lots of different options beyond anything that I covered out here, of course, with therapy and counseling and lots of other, you know, possibly like medications, things like that are available for you. So I would encourage you to explore all of that, and I will be back with more passive income content in the weeks to come. Remember that every week we're putting out 2 videos here on this channel, so you'll get lots of information about how to build that passive income business. I look forward to seeing you there, and on my website at christinascalera.com if you want to jump in, get a head start on that passive income business, and just see what you can create today. I have a list of product ideas attached to a workshop that I have over there. So if that's something of interest to you, go ahead, check that out. And for everybody else, I will see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.